I started out as an office boy, just mailing Joe Namath posters and polishing the Super Bowl trophy on Monday mornings. That was my job.
Doing a fashion show at this mall in New Jersey. And
were you one of the models?
What? No. I was just...
The Byrds were doing it, and Love was doing it, and a lot of people were doing it on Sunset Boulevard in those days. But we were the first ones to record it.
Yeah, what happened was I was doing a show in Pennsylvania at Lehigh University. There was a blizzard, and it was Janis Joplin, Big Brother, Steve Miller Band, and Wilson Pickett, his band. Oh. So we got snowed in for 3 days. So and they put us in an old dorm for 3 days. And I just got to hang with Janis and everybody. We had a lot of hash.
Hey, this is Party Like a Rockstar podcast, and I'm your host, Joel. Today's episode is brought to you by Misha's Kind Foods. They're an LA-based small business making the world's finest non-dairy cheese on the market today. They're lactose-free, paleo, keto, kosher, Parev, and 100% vegan. If you like what you see, check out the next video. If you like this video, please subscribe and like by clicking the little round button on the bottom right. To learn more about me or our other guests on the show, go to joelrohde.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok. The handle is Joel Rohde. If you haven't already read my book, Memoir of a Roadie, it's now available through Amazon and paperback Kindle or as an audiobook. I hope you enjoy the show. Jim Pons is an American bassist, author, and singer who most notably played for the Leaves, the Turtles, and the Mothers of Invention. He also worked for the New York Jets from 1973 to 2000. His autobiography is titled Hardcore Love, Sex, Football, and Rock and Roll in the Kingdom of God. My second guest is Richard Borders. He worked on some of the first concert touring light shows in the 1960s. He's done gigs with The Who, Pink Floyd, The Doors, Jimi Hendrix, Harry Chapin, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, The Doors, which I said a second time, but they are a great band. The Band, Janis Joplin, Fleetwood Mac, the Monkees, Yes, and Jethro Tull. He even worked on a little tiny show in 1969 called Woodstock. So my first question is going to be to you, Richard. And my question to you is, what do you think about Pat Boone?
I've done shows with him, actually.
Oh, yeah?
He really wasn't that bad, you know. When you grew up on songs like Moon River and things that he, you know, if your parents listened to it, you listen to it, you get into everything pretty much, you know.
So there was a lead in here, obviously. So, Jim, how did Pat Boone get into the mix with you?
He wandered into a club we were playing on Sunset Strip, the Leaves, at Ciro's, and introduced himself to us. And he was interested in signing young talent to a production company that he was just starting.
Huh. You guys all knew who he was?
What?
You knew who he was, though.
I knew who he was. Yeah, I liked his old songs from the 50s. He was a crooner, and he had white shoes, too. He wore his white shoes to Ciro's that night. And we were really impressed that he was interested in us, and we signed a record deal with him. I don't know how he heard about us, but came in that night, and we met with him, and we signed a contract the next day.
That's cool. So another one. So the Leas, you were the first to record Hey Joe. I started researching the song of Hey Joe. You did some stuff with Jimi Hendrix, Richard, so there's a connection. But my question is, you guys re-recorded it several times. Did you do that with other songs? And what made you want to stick with Hey Joe? What was telling you that maybe there was something to the song?
We didn't do it with any other song but that one. And it's tough to remember why we did it 3 times. We weren't satisfied with the first 2, obviously. And we actually changed lead guitar players between the second and the third one. So he might have brought something to the table that we didn't have prior. Also, I think the third version had that break in the middle that nobody else had, which made it a little more commercial than the Byrds were doing it, and Love was doing it, and a lot of people were doing it on Sunset Boulevard in those days.
Oh, got it.
We were the first ones to record it, and
And how'd you hear about the track?
the song.
Yeah, so that was it. So I was researching. It's credited to Billy Roberts. Some people say he didn't write it.
He didn't know
Neela
anything
Miller,
about
maybe Dino Valenti.
I know we it was never really settled who wrote it, but we weren't really interested in that. The Byrds did a version, and we loved the way it sounded, and we just recorded. We wanted to record it. They were doing it live at Ciro's, and we thought we needed to record it, and we did, and it was released on Mira Records, which was one of Pat Boone's friends, and it got to be a big hit.
That's neat stuff. That's really neat. Did you see Jimmy play Hey Joe, Richard?
Oh yeah, a couple different times he played it, and he never played the same. You know, he's gonna change things around and jam in the middle of it with that song.
Yeah.
I saw the Byrds do it too.
Yeah.
I did a lot
really?
of shows with the Byrds. They were one of my favorite bands.
Yeah, mine too. I love the Byrds.
Yeah.
Well, they're part of the LA scene too, right? Weren't they all here?
Yeah.
So were you hanging out with them in Laurel Canyon type thing, or not so much?
I didn't hang out with them. No, we knew Brian McLean, who's their road manager. You must know him.
I know the name, sure.
He's the one that showed us how to play the chords to Hey Joe. He lived in Laurel Canyon. I didn't know. I think Roger lived up there somewhere, but yeah, we were in that circle of people.
Yeah. Ed Sullivan show with the Turtles. What was that day like?
The day, it was a long day, actually. We started rehearsing in the morning with the stage crew and the sound technicians, and we did it to a pre-recorded music track, and Mark and Howard sang the leads live. And it was all very exciting. We didn't see Ed until the minute before the show went on the air live. And I remember it was remarkable. He had red hair. I had never seen him I never saw him on a color television, but it was a thrill. I mean, it was, one of the great moments of my musical career, Ed Sullivan show.
That's fantastic. How did you get into the Turtles? So the bass player left, right? And then you jumped in immediately.
He quit to produce the Monkees. He became the record producer for the Monkees. And I had known Mark and Howard, and we played together up and down the Sunset Strip, and it was very seamless. They came over. They sent Johnny Barbada, the drummer, to my house, and he told me they needed a bass player, and they wanted it to be me. So they knew I was able to. I didn't have to audition. I just had to start rehearsing with them.
So time and place.
Time when the leaves were starting to fail. We were just college kids acting like rock guys, and we just didn't have what it takes to last.
Yeah.
So I was ready to do something else, and it happened at a good time.
Yeah. So what drove you to it? So for you, Jim, what drove you to playing the bass? Was mom and dad musicians? And then Richard, what was your fascination with lasers and light shows? And
Well, I had always been involved with different lighting effects and stuff. Even when I was a kid, I used to have Christmas tree lights blinking to cutouts of famous monsters in Filmland on the wall.
Oh, wow.
And
I used to subscribe to that.
I got involved with Edmund Scientific, and I used to design some of the effects for them. I used to have access to all the Edmund Scientific stuff too. So that's how I kind of fell into it. That's how I found my first laser and stuff. And Edmund Scientific, they were giving me all kinds of equipment, motors and stuff. And I saw a helium neon laser. I said, well, I want one of those. So what do you do with that? It's just a dot. I said, I got an idea. I took it home, glued a speaker, a mirror to a speaker, and bounced it to the music. And that's when I started the laser drawing systems and stuff. It just kind of fell into it. I always loved lights. I always had AV projectors and film projectors and was into movies and stuff. So there was an AV company in New Jersey that my grandma knew the owner of. They used to fix all the school stuff. So I get all the overheads and liquids, and I supplied the Fillmore East guys, Josh White with his equipment too. So I have so much access to equipment stuff too. So that's how I got all this stuff. I just always loved lights. I fell into doing shows in Newark, New Jersey when I was 16.
Wow.
My grandmother took me to a wrestling match, and there was a sign, Temptations in Four Tops, the promoter was doing. So I said, so she called the promoter and said, my grandson wants to see that show. So come to the backstage door and ask me. They put me in a side balcony because it was an all-black audience in New Jersey. So I was watching the guys do lighting. He introduced me to him. I said, I want to learn. So they go, come to the next show. It was little Stevie Wonder's second show ever. Now you couldn't get away with this. They said, climb up that rope ladder, shimmy across the pipe, and name one light at a time.
Yeah.
And I was a 16-year-old kid, non-union or anything. And they just let me do it. That's how I learned.
That's neat.
Did all these black artists, did B.B. King and James Brown, and then they started doing shows. And I was on the Ron John surf team, so I asked the promoter to get the Beach Boys. He did, and it sold out. And they started doing shows in Asbury Park then over the summer. So I just kind of fell into it.
That's a fun thing to fall into, especially the time era. The era is amazing.
Someday when I see you, Richard, we got to talk about famous monsters of Filmland.
Yeah.
I used to subscribe to that.
Forrest Ackerman. I knew Forrest Ackerman too.
Did you? Oh my God.
Yeah.
I had his assistant on here with Michael
really?
Grace. Yeah, Michael Grace wrote Poltergeist, and he's a very close friend of mine. So I had him on with his assistant, and then the editor-in-chief of Fangoria. And
Really?
yeah, it was real fun, man. It was nice guys. It was cool. But yeah, Ackerman, he was telling some Ackerman stories, which was wonderful. So
Unbelievable.
yeah, it's neat stuff. So why the bass? What drove you to music, Jim?
Oh, well, the Beatles. When I saw them on Ed Sullivan show that day, I thought, I was in college. I didn't know what I wanted to be. That's where you go after you get out of high school.
What were you studying in college?
Art. But I was an art major. I was only 2 years in, so I wasn't serious about anything. I was in a fraternity. I was just having a good time. Then the Beatles came out, and I realized what it is I wanted to do. And I said, I want to be an entertainer, be in a rock and roll band. You read the book? Did you read my book?
I haven't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Richard did?
You still have the Hofner bass, right?
Hofner. Yeah, I still have my Hofner bass. So I wanted to be Paul McCartney, and I started a band in my fraternity. The guys that didn't know any more music than I did. None of us knew music.
Yeah, you played that with the Imagine show with Maddie and I.
Yeah, that's right.
That bass. Yeah, that was great. We had so much fun at that. Thank you so much.
You got to do it again.
Yeah, we do.
So the Mothers of Invention, how did the Mothers of Invention start with you? What was the process of you joining that band?
That same thing. I knew Frank because he and I had dinner occasionally. He played on Sunset Strip in those days, and we got to be friends. And then when the Turtles died and Flo and Eddie wasn't formed yet, I got the word that Mark and Howard were playing in the new Mothers of Invention creation by Frank Zappa. I thought that was pretty remarkable combination of things. And then one day Mark called me and said their bass player quit. Frank's bass player quit, and he needed a bass player. So it's the same kind of thing. And he wanted me to be the guy. So that's what it was. That's all it took.
Yeah. So you were at the show, the Montreux show with the flare?
They say it was a flare gun. I'm not sure it was, but it looked like a sparkler to me. But there was a fire up in the balcony. Yeah, small fire. And then it fell down to the floor, and the crowd went crazy and stormed the stage. And we had to run. It's an old wooden build theater, so it caught fire very quickly.
And you guys you just sat outside and watched it burn?
Yeah, well, we didn't get outside until we thought we were going to be trapped downstairs in the kitchen. And our bus driver broke a glass wall down with his arm. We crawled through a hole in the glass, and then we got outside to with a loading dock and stood there with the Swiss fire department. Watched it burn down to the ground. Yeah.
So you lost all your instruments, backline,
Yes.
everything?
Yes. Instruments, lights, amps, sound equipment, all Frank's guitars, everything but a cowbell. We found a cowbell the next day.
Who
A
kept the
brown,
cowbell?
burned up cowbell.
Wow.
Ironic.
And then what about the show when he was pushed off the stage?
That was the next show we did because we had to have 2 weeks to rent new equipment and rehearse with it. So the very first show we played was back in London. I forget the place. I'm drawing a blank on the place. But yeah, when it was in the middle of our encore, just like the fire, somebody pushed past me on the stage and ran over to Frank and pushed him into the orchestra pit.
So you felt the guy come by you?
Yeah, he bumped me as he ran by me.
Wow. And I read it was Timothy something.
I don't know. And I turned around and looked where he came from. And the next thing I knew, everybody was standing by the edge of the stage looking down into the orchestra pit. That's where Frank landed.
Wow.
Turns out the guy thought his girlfriend was having a relationship with Frank, and he was mad about that. And he came on stage, and that was the end of our career with Frank Zappa. We were told he wasn't going to be able to play again, and we dispersed and went back home. And I did see him in the hospital before we left London. And that was it.
Heavy. And then after that, then you quickly jumped onto the football stuff?
No, Mark and Howard had an offer to go on the road with Alice Cooper. We still had Frank's band. We couldn't be the Turtles because White Whale Records owned the name, and we were in a lawsuit with them. So they took the name from our two road managers, who we called the Fluorescent Leak and Eddie. And we went back on the road with the Zappa band and toured with Alice Cooper. That was the beginning of Flo and Eddie.
Oh, no way. I didn't know that part. Did you know that, Richard?
Yeah, I think they even played the Ritz Theater in Staten Island that I was running at the time.
Oh my gosh.
You and Alice played, yeah, in that show.
Yeah, that was the $1 Billion Babies tour in 1973.
Yeah, that was fun. Because I ran the Ritz Theater for the Younganos.
Our paths may have crossed many times, Richard.
Yeah, I know. So much over the years. It was great to get.
Richard, so Woodstock, at the time, I'm assuming you didn't know it was going to be as big and grandiose as it is now in the culture, right?
Well, I had a little more of an inkling of it. I had done Monterey Pop, and I had been on the road with the Who and stuff. And I saw all these people that said they were coming to Woodstock. And I had worked with Hair, so I knew that's how I knew them and got involved with in the beginning. I was telling them, you're going to have a lot more people than you realize. And they said, no, we'll have maybe 20,000, maybe 25. I said, no, you're going to have a lot. So I kind of warned them ahead of time, but we never even realized how big it would be. You know? And it was crazy because I had already gotten a job for 17 Esquire magazine doing a fashion show at this mall in New Jersey. And
were you one of the models?
What? No. I was doing projections for a fashion show.
I thought that's maybe where you met Jim.
in New Jersey, no. And the Esquire magazine picked me up in the helicopter Saturday morning, flew me back. We stopped in New York and brought Billy Mitchell and Steve Stills and Graham Nash to do the Dick Cavett show. They took me to the mall and flew me back in with the helicopter Esquire magazine.
Wow.
So I actually got to go and come back again.
Was it hard to keep everything going with all the rain and everything, all the equipment?
Well, we were kind of covered where we were, with the equipment, but it was just, you were just soaked. You were wet. You were going to be wet,
How long did you sleep after Woodstock?
I don't sleep a lot anyway. So
really?
I just kept going. Yeah, I sleep maybe 5-6 hours a day still, at my age. But I probably, it took me a while to recover from that for sure.
Yeah.
And I had just done the Atlantic City Pop Festival before that, which was even better, because there was no rain. It was much more organized. We had a circular stage where we rotated the stage and everything.
Yeah.
That was the festival month, pretty much August that year.
So some of the fun one of my favorite question maybe is, what are some of the crazier gigs that you guys have played or remember playing through the years? Nutty venues or crazy lineups, standout performances. A lot of the ones I like are the ones of like, how the hell are we supposed to play in this place?
I think my strangest day was a Saturday. I did Joan Baez at Fairleigh Dickinson University afternoon and Gigi Allin at the Stone Pony at night. Now, do you know Gigi Allin?
Yeah, I brought on his drummer.
He was a lunatic. He'd throw crap at people and,
This guy brought Gigi Allin to his company Christmas party.
That was the strangest day, doing Joan Baez and Gigi Allin on the same day, I think.
Yeah, that's definitely a transition of sorts.
The sound guys, we locked ourselves in the booth because he tried to get into the booth. So we locked ourselves and put tables around so we couldn't even get into the booth. And it's crazy.
How long was the Gigi Allin show? It would have been short, right?
It was right after he got out of jail and just before he died.
Oh.
And it was at least an hour show or more, And it was wall-to-wall people, and he'd be running around, spinning his arms, and it would separate like there was a magnetic pull away from him, so people would separate. This audience had no space. They'd separate around him as he ran around like a crazy man,
Did you know who he was before the show?
I did an interview with him in his dressing room, and for a while he was talking to me, and it was just normal. Then he went into the character. Then once he went on stage, it was a whole different transformation he went through.
Yeah.
It's strange to see what
Oh yeah, that's a nice way to put it. Yeah, I've heard some of the stories.
Richard, if anybody, you need to write a book. If you haven't already, you need.
No, I'm working on it called Seed and Music, and I thought it had been finished, and I'm trying to finish by the end of the year. What I'm doing is I wanted to have a book that could plug into a computer. So I was looking for books that would have a USB hookup in it, and nobody made it, so I patented the idea.
Oh, jeez.
So my book will be the first one with a USB drive in it that can plug into your computer and go online and everything else. And I've been sitting in my studio telling video stories, and what I'm doing is Madi is the end of the book.
Madi?
After years of working with artists and helping artists, everybody from Bon Jovi to other people I've helped out. Meeting Madi was like the ultimate performer. Well, you know Madi, Jim, too.
Yeah.
And she's like a human jukebox. She's just such an incredible soul and talent at the same time. So the whole kind of end of the book is about meeting the ultimate performer, working with her, and doing all these other projects. We're doing a thing called Enlightened Folk, where she's playing with an interview with famous folk musicians that we've been working on with a TV thing. And so she's in Montana now for the whole summer. And finishing out the park working.
I'm getting pictures of her. She's got some amazing pictures.
Oh, I know. I just sent her video cameras out to shoot more stuff.
Amazing.
Do you have any stand-up performances that you remember, Jim, at odd places or special evenings? Or
Well, a couple, I think. The White House was one of them.
I was going to bring that one up.
That's something that I was
with the Turtles.
Yeah, it was the Turtles. We were Tricia Nixon, the daughter of Richard Nixon. The Turtles were her favorite band. So she invited us to play at her sweet 16 birthday party.
Wow, that's it. I remember hearing that. That's great.
And what made that fun is, the Secret Service guys took all our equipment apart on the East Wing steps, and they heard a ticking sound. First of all, they were already suspicious of us, long-haired hippies, from Hollywood, California, during the war years. We had a new drummer, and he needed a metronome to tell him the sound, the pace of the sounds. It had turned on during the flight, and they broke it apart, and they thought it might have been a bomb or something. So they returned the broken metronome, and they gave him a check for $75, I think. He still has the White House check.
That's a good one.
we played with the Temptations and the United States Marine Corps Band.
Oh, that's incredible.
And she loved us and sent us a nice letter afterwards. So that was remarkable.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I played on the roof of a house of a gas station in Anchorage, Alaska. We did a show with Procol Harum, and
Really? They were one of my favorite bands.
they were awesome.
I love those guys. BJ was one of my best friends.
Really?
Yeah, we were so close till he passed away. And I still know, Gary, I knew too till he passed.
Well,
They were one of my favorite bands for sure.
it had snowed the night before our show, and we were on this roof, and it was not very substantial, and I almost fell in. One of my feet went through the roof of the building, and had to be pulled out. That was something I remember.
Is this why you went into football?
Football was worse.
Was it?
Yeah.
What were you doing with the football stuff? You were doing videography?
Yes.
And I mean, you liked it because you did it for decades.
Well, yeah, I started out as an office boy, just mailing Joe Namath posters and polishing the Super Bowl trophy on Monday mornings. That was my job.
Why did you leave? Why did you leave music though?
Because I got tired of it, and we weren't having hit records anymore. It became a job and not any fun.
But you were a football fan too.
Yeah, I was a football fan.
Okay.
But I took the job because I write about it in the book. I met someone that I wanted to spend time with in New York, and I moved there. And just as I moved there, my friend who was in the leads with me when we started offered me a job as an office boy of the New York Jets football club, which he had taken for the summer, and now he's leaving it, and he wanted me to fill in for him.
But you're living in LA, right, at the time? Yeah.
Yeah. But I got to New York, and I said I'd do the job for a month, and it turned out to be 27 years.
That's great.
Turned into an equipment manager, assistant equipment manager, and then film coordinator, and then cameraman. And it's a long story, but it's detailed in the book, by the way. It's pretty interesting. Weeb Eubank was the head coach at the time, and the coaches were getting their films on Wednesday, and they needed to have them sooner than that. And he wanted somebody on the staff to shoot games. I didn't know anything about movies, but I told him I was from Hollywood, California, and that's all he needed. Told him, he said, "Do you know anything about movies?" And I said, "They call me Cecil B. DeMille Jr. in Hollywood." And he said, "I'm going to have you run the film department." So I had to learn how to shoot a camera and develop film, and that's how it started. I had a camera that I had to hand wind between plays, and it's gone from that to video, now to digital, and it's been a remarkable history of the film department in the NFL. But I was there at the beginning.
Now I found this little brief clip on YouTube, and I don't know if it was you, but it's like "Happy Birthday, Jim Pons" is what it's called, and it was you were sweeping the floor at one of the concerts, or one of the guys that was sweeping the floor during the show.
That
doesn't ring a bell.
Doesn't ring a bell.
I'll try and find it and send it to you. It was a short clip, but I was wondering what the show antic was where they were sweeping the floor during the middle of the show. So I think it was Turtles.
I don't know that one.
All right. And I did some research on you too, Richard. So I read a little bit. So you had conversations with Janis Joplin?
Yeah, what happened was I was doing a show in Pennsylvania at Lehigh University. There was a blizzard, and it was Janis Joplin, Big Brother, Steve Miller Band, and Wilson Pickett, his band.
Oh.
So we got snowed in for 3 days. So they put us in an old dorm for 3 days. And I just got to hang with Janis and everybody. We had a lot of hash. So I had enough hash and acid for everybody to do. And we just all hung out with Steve Miller. And it was funny. I was driving to get some more power cords I needed. And it was a blizzard. And I'm driving back in my van. I see this guy looks like a giant snowman. So I pull over. I said, "You need a ride?" And it was Tim Reed, the drummer from Steve Miller, who couldn't get to the gig. He flew there and he couldn't get there. So we brought him in, and it was just, we got snowed in for 3 days. It was a blast, you know. Well, and Wilson Pickett's band, it was such a diverse group of, you know, Janis and Big Brother and Steve Miller and his guys, and then Wilson Pickett and his band. You know?
Yeah, Wilson Pickett's amazing stuff. Yes.
Steve Miller.
And then how did you get the Who gig?
Well, I was doing shows I did some shows at Fillmore, but I wound up doing when the Who came with Herman's Hermits. I did those shows, and that's how I met the Who, and we kind of became friends. And then when they came back for the second tour, they said, "Do you know where we can get any pot?" The first show I did with them, I said, "Well, I only get hash." And their eyes lit up because that's all they do in England is hash. They said, "Well, when can you get it?" I said, "Well, here, take this ounce," you know. So they turned me on to a lot of the English bands, actually. They said, "Paul, this guy does great lights. He does stage lights. He does light shows. And the day you get there, it'll turn you on to the hash you do too." So cannabis has always had a guidance in my thing. I've been doing cannabis festivals now too. I know your wife is involved with those too.
Huh.
But so that's how and so I became friends with Who, and they were one of the bands like Yes. I helped get Yes their first gigs. So when I wanted to do stuff, they'd give me the budgets I wanted to do lasers or, you know, I had the first black and white projectors with the Who doing Tommy. So I could do listening to you, I see the music, I could have the audience on the screen at the same time with the light show. I had 12 slide projectors, 3 moving projectors, 3 overheads, a black and white projector, same kind NASA had. These Kelly Victor projectors that NASA had in Mission Control. I had a black and white one. I had 3 cameras and a mixer, which is rare. I had reel-to-reel black and white and then reel-to-reel color videos I have of the Who doing Tommy and stuff like that. Shows, yeah. So I went through I started 16 millimeter, 8 millimeter films, then got into ½ inch and 3/4 and black and white and color, 3/4 inch, 2 inch, 1 inch. I have every video format ever made, concerts. Every format. Now it's all digital, you know, robotic cameras and everything I use now and stuff.
Have they all been transferred?
A lot of it, some of the reel-to-reel stuff, actually, I have to go to Smithsonian because they don't have the reel-to-reel black and white and color machines anymore. They have the Sony ones. But if I go there, and they get a copy, they'll copy it for me. But they have to treat, the tape is so old that they have to treat it first. Then when it's through, so I'm trying to figure out how to get there and for 4 days or get it to them so they can copy all the old stuff, you know. 3/4 inch stuff and other video stuff I have, you know. I have a lot of Betamax stuff at concerts.
Okay, so when I first put together this podcast, I was hanging out at my friend's house. My friends have little kids. My friend's daughter was in elementary school, and she said I should ask every guest when they first felt famous. And so I ask each of you, when did you first feel famous? If you don't feel you're famous, and I'm not saying you should or you shouldn't, that's up to you. It's up to you. But when would there be a moment in your career that, I'll say, switched things up? You know, they had that moment of inspiration or pushed you to the next level. What would each of you guys choose would be your moment?
Well, should I go?
Sure.
I guess it would be when we got our first gig in Hollywood at Ciro's nightclub. That's where all the new breed of hippies were hanging out everywhere, every night, and we were just San Fernando Valley kids and tried to, you know, act like musicians. And when we actually auditioned for the job at Ciro's, when the Byrds went on the road and got the gig, and we really were playing for those people that we were enamored with on Sunset Boulevard, that's when I realized this is taking off. This is more than just a fraternity combo now. this is more than just a hobby. This could be big. And then Pat Boone signed us to a record contract. So I guess it was then right at the beginning for me.
That's good. Where did you get your first bass?
When?
Where?
I don't remember where, but I had a band and none of us had any instruments and I had to buy them all. So I had a car accident and my insurance company gave me $1,100 and I bought a bass, a guitar, a set of drums, and 2 amplifiers. And I picked out 2 of my fraternity brothers that had a good look. And I said, we're going to have a band. And we did. We started a band called the Rockwells. And it grew from that.
That's great. And what would be your moment, Richard?
Well, I've never thought of myself as famous. I was always kind of the man behind the curtain, philosophy that I've had. But one show that I remember that kind of hit it differently. I was doing a lot of shows with the Who when they were wrecking their equipment and making no money. But then when we started, we played the Metropolitan Opera House, which was kind of big. But then we went to California and we played in San Diego at the 18,000 seat auditorium. And we were setting up all day and we went sailing stuff. And we were all backstage hanging out. And I walked out to go to the booth, my projection booth, in the middle of the audience. I opened the door. That was a stage door. When I opened the door, people just started yelling. And it was so weird. I walked right back in because I wasn't used to the yelling, But then the band came. I said, "Come here, guys." They opened the door, and the crowd just went nuts. And it was one of the things I'll never forget because it gave me an insight of how just to be with the Who, what it was like to be that way. Then I walked out sheepishly with my spot and sat down, embarrassed.
What's the story with the Who then with the song? It's like a mobile home, or is the name of the song, something like that?
Well, I had one of the first Dodge bubble top motorhomes, and the Who wrote "Go Mobile" in it. I took it on the Who's Next tour, and I could fit all my equipment, the projectors and everything, on the bottom of it, and we could sit on top of it. I had hammocks in the ceiling of it, so you could sleep in the hammocks. And instead of having a truck, because the only equipment was so delicate, that's what we drove around on the tour with. So, we'd be someplace, and then after the show, people want to go out and go drink and stuff. So I'd drive people around in the van, in the motorhome. And that's where they were going mobile. And then at the end of the tour, it finished in Philly, and they all bought giant Winnebago motorhomes and had them shipped by boat to England after that. So that's how that's the whole thing developed on that, They just loved my little Dodge mini motorhome. And it said, it was Gemini Light Show, so it had a Zodiac sign in the front window on the side. On the side of the back, it had the Who Alive tour. And on the back said, "You're tailgating the Who's crew."
And it died it's died in Europe, or is it, who knows?
No. What happened with my band? I was taking it to do a teachers convention in New Jersey. The guy put out in front of me. I turned it over.
Oh, so it went from England and then back here.
No. This is in the United States.
Oh, I thought you said it went to England. Sorry.
Oh no. They bought 4 mobile homes, giant Winnebagos that were $40,000 each, and had them shipped to England for themselves after they had after they saw they said, "Well, we want bigger ones." And in Philadelphia, they bought them and shipped them by boat all the way to England. And that's what they toured Europe with, the mobile homes. So they each had their own mobile home from there. And then after that, they always made sure they had one in the States and stuff too.
Huh.
It's just the way the going mobile developed,
Yeah, it's like the origins of the tour bus. That's neat. Cool.
They don't put their names on it anymore, though.
No. No.
Only unknown bands, but only the lower bands put their names on it.
Yeah.
I have a friend who owns American Coach, who builds all the big tour buses, and what they're building are amazing now. Some of the stuff they have.
Yeah.
If you could do one more tour, which band would you pick, Jim? And Richard, if you had one more tour, who would you choose to work with? Of all the bands, of all the people.
If I was in, you mean if I was able to?
You could do a lineup of any of the groups you played with. Who would it be? What would the lineup be?
Gee, I don't know.
If it's a bad question, you could just say your question sucks.
I enjoyed touring with Alice. I liked him a lot. We had a lot of fun. We did 91 nighters in 102 days.
That's when he drank and stuff too, right?
Yeah. Well, he looked like he did. He always carried beer and VO whiskey around, and I never saw him actually drink, but that was his image.
You ever see him play golf?
No, I never did. I understand he's a pretty good golfer.
That and poker. That's what I'm told all the time.
Yeah, I know.
Not play poker with him.
We played poker. We played poker on the airplane. We had the back of the airplane was turned into a casino. We played there every time we were in the air. I
had a friend who was putting on concerts in New Jersey, and he booked John Mayall in the opening act. They sent me the record, and I said, "This doesn't go." And then the opening act got there, and I said, "They don't match up." And the opening act was Alice Cooper for John Mayall.
Wow!
And they get there, and and they were all in a band, the whole band. And I said, after the show, I said, "Where are you guys staying?" They said, "Well, we just stay in the band." They stayed at my grandmother's house that night, about 10 minutes from the gig in New Jersey. That's what I first I did with Alice Cooper. Then he played the Ritz and stuff. I saw him other times and stuff too. But
did you ever work at the PNC Arts Center, Richard?
All the time. All my union friends were there. I was there all the time. I helped put the video projectors down there when they did video projectors. And I used to live in Keyport. I could go through the backstage in 6 minutes from my house.
Did you have a son who worked in the industry too?
No, my son's a Lieutenant State Fire Department. He works there in New Jersey on a lot of the concerts and stuff.
Might be thinking of something. At the PNC Arts Center, I remember there was a fellow who I think looked like you, and his son worked in it, and his son's daughter was also in it, and they were all the crew. It was great.
Oh yeah, that's what's his name? Oh God, he worked with Twisted Sister.
Okay, that sounds right. They're really nice people, like really good people.
Yeah, Bill and his wife and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they ran his son worked there too after. And, It was a good group. I knew all the union guys there. It was a whole group of people, especially the Jersey Shore. Between there and the Stone Pony was my home base, and still kind of always is. Asbury Park was where I did shows all my life.
How active are we on the painting, Jim?
Active?
Yeah.
Sales?
No. I mean, it can be if you want to be, but no, I'm just wondering if you're diligent about it.
You mean how active I am as a painter now, you mean?
Yeah, you do you paint oil? Do you do watercolor?
Oh, I do acrylic. I'm a little bit intimidated by oils right at this stage of my career. I've only been painting about 3 years. I took a continuing education class with 7 little old ladies at North Florida University. And the teachers said I had some talent, and I started painting. That was about 3 years ago.
That's great.
And I got some nice ones.
Yeah. Well, if you guys have any other stories, you're welcome to share them. But if not, if not for now might be a better way to put it. If not, that's all you've got. But
we could go on for a long time, I think.
Yeah, sounds like
I'm
it.
sure. Yeah. But if you have any others that you want to make sure you mention, do it. Otherwise, where would be a good place to see your artwork, Jim? And then this young lady, Madi, that you think is the bee's knees. She's great. Where can we find Miss Madi? And
yeah, we'd like to finish the show with Arvid and you again together, Jim. Madi played with Arvid
I know. I would love to do that. You should tell him about that. That when we played with the John Lennon wannabe.
Yeah,
where did you find this John Lennon guy?
Well, Madi had wrote a song called "Dear John" that I kind of liked, about thanking him for turning around to music. And this friend of mine who worked with Universal Studios, Gary Petrovich, he was a film producer. called me and said, my neighbor looks, sounds, and plays like John Lennon. Can you get him a gig? So I literally had the light bulb going over my head and said, let me do the show Imagine John Lennon with Madi playing him. And we put it together in 6 weeks. With Madi was doing archaeological digs in Crystal River for Native American stuff, and it was our summer vacation. But it was so much fun. We had such a great group of musicians with Jim, and Arvid Smith plays slide guitars and sitars and everything. He's just incredible.
Amazing.
And we have Phil Penn, who's the lead violinist for the symphony orchestra. So we had
Amazing.
the whole symphony orchestra together. It was just unbelievable. So much fun, you know. And
Good.
Madi was Paul McCartney, and this guy looks. We went to eat. Len Johnson and I, who looks like John Lennon, and people are looking at him. And I said, I bet you think Elvis is dead too. You know, he much doesn't like him. Jim does. He was like, you know.
He looked like him and sounded like him. It was amazing. Really.
Yeah.
He dressed like him. That was fun. That was a fun gig.
Yeah, that was really cool. It just it's something like, you know, it's interesting when you have an idea that just can manifest that quickly and work. That's what's kind of made that really fun.
Let me know if you want to get together with me and Natty and Arvid.
Yeah, definitely. I know. In fact, she'll be around October. Let's maybe put something together.
Okay.
There somewhere, maybe there in Mudville or something. Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you very much, guys. I look forward to talking to you both soon. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for interviewing us.
You're welcome. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe by clicking the round button on the bottom right. To learn more about me or the guests on the show, go to joelrody.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok. The handle's Joel Rody. And don't forget, when you party like a rock star, don't be a dick.